So Jay, Baba, everybody, we are sharing our favorite poems and also poems that we may have written if people would like feedback. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the process of feedback for poetry, because that can be a very treacherous path. And so this is the way I do it, but if anybody else has any suggestions different, I'm really open to hearing that. If you have one that you would like to share that you wrote, just let us know that you would like some feedback. And the feedback I'd like to suggest we try to limit ourselves to are, what impacted you the most about that poem? And I find that when someone's reading a poem to me and I'm trying to give feedback, I just jot notes down. That's really helpful. Then your mind's not sort of trying to stay connected, through a thread to something that then sort of stops you, disavows you from continuing on with the poem. So what impacted you the most about it? And then also what's very helpful for a poet is to know what about the poem was not clear to you. Like if there's a point where you don't understand it, you're confused. That is a big deal in poetry, because a lot of poetry tends to be a bit opaque. And I don't think it's a virtue for poetry, because then you lose a lot of people. And and the other thing you can say is, if you want a different type of feedback, you can ask for that in particular. So does that sound good? Okay, good. Telly, you've probably done a little bit of this. Have you done this before, where you had people comment on poetry?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Just in sharing, but there hasn't been anything like real feedback on it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, good to know. Well, so Diana, would you like to? You've pulled a poem that you like. Would you like to share it?
Well, okay. I'll do my best with it, because it's a poem that sort of gives me a sort of a feeling, not an emotion, but sort of a mental, a mental feeling, you could say, and she's not a Bible lover, but this is the astrophysicist. I've read some poetry of hers before, who I like. Her name is Rebecca Elson, and this is a poem called Devonian Days. And I didn't know what Devonian was, and I looked it up and I found it's an early geologic period. So she's talking about probably millions of years ago, something like that. That was the week it rained, as if the world thought it could begin again in all the innocence of mud. And we just stayed there by the window watching, so aloof from our amphibious desires that we didn't recognize the heaviness we took to be dissatisfaction with the weather, to be, in fact, the memory after buoyancy, of weight, of belly scraping over beach. We didn't notice, in our restlessness, the webbed toes twitching in our socks, the itch of evolution or its possibilities.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
That really does create such strong images.
Could you read it again?
Yeah, all that crawling in the mud. Okay. Devonian Days. That was the week it rained, as if the world thought it could begin again in all the innocence of mud. And we just stayed there by the window, watching, so aloof from our amphibious desires that we didn't recognize the heaviness we took to be dissatisfaction with the weather, to be, in fact, the memory after buoyancy of weight, of belly scraping over beach. We didn't notice in our restlessness the webbed toes twitching in our socks, the itch of evolution or its possibilities.
I think it's a really great poem. I have to say, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's nice images.
I like the images, and the connection with Baba for me is, it's about evolution. It's about a feeling about evolution.
Yeah.
And, that's one of the big stories we're living.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have lived evolution.
That's a good point. Thank you for sharing that. I was not familiar with that poet.
In our mud days. There's another very short one that's sort of along the same line. Should I just go ahead and read that?
Sure.
Since we're in that mood. This one, funny enough, is called Evolution. We are survivors of immeasurable events flung upon some reach of land, small, wet miracles without instructions, only the imperative of change.
Can you read it again?
Yeah. Evolution. We are the survivors of immeasurable events flung upon some reach of land, small, wet miracles without instructions, only the imperative of change.
I appreciate the way it's reminding us that there's something that we're not in control of.
Yeah, I think she's into like the natural world and how it came to be.
Yeah.
And where it's going and how far it is. And in that way, I feel like this reaching for Baba kind of feeling in her.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing those. It's always so great to be exposed to new poetry.
But that's it.
Well, I have one. I actually have several I wanted to read that are just sort of favorites. Some of them we've read before and some of them we haven't, but this one is pretty well known. I think I read it once a while back. It's a Caribbean poet named Derek Walcott, who died in the 90s. And it's one of my favorite poems he's ever written. It's called Love After Love. Time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. I'm always so touched. I am always so touched by that poem. Every time I read it, it's just,
That's wonderful.
Right down to the essence of it.
Yeah.
Love after love.
It's so positive.
Yes, it really is. So I was reflecting today on the ways that we are forgiven, and particularly by, people like Mir Baba. We are forgiven. We always know that. We always feel that we are forgiven, and how sometimes hard that is to receive that, or that we're forgiven by someone that we love, and how hard that is to receive that, and how refreshing that is. To me, it's like the words love after love. There's just an open door that's always there for us. And it's really a question of, do we want to walk through it and accept that grace, accept the wine and the bread, the communion. This is one I think we read once before also. It's called Last Night as I Was Sleeping. And it's by Antonio Machado, and it was translated by Robert Bly. Last night as I was sleeping, I dreamt, marvelous error, that a spring was breaking out in my heart. I said, along which secret aqueduct, O water, are you coming to me? Water of a new life that I have never drunk. Last night, as I was sleeping, I dreamt, marvelous error, that I had a beehive inside my heart. And the golden bees were making white combs and sweet honey from my old failures. Last night, as I was sleeping, I dreamt, marvelous error, that a fiery sun was giving light inside my heart. It was fiery because I felt warmth as from a hearth, and sun because it gave light and brought tears to my eyes. Last night, as I slept, I dreamt, marvelous error, that it was God I had here inside my heart. Sort of that same thing, of, the eternal doorway, which never leaves us. We push it away, but it never actually leaves.
I like the repetition of marvelous error.
I do too.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
It's very powerful. Yeah. There's something very reassuring to me about a poem that has a repetition and it's done very masterfully like that. Like it just keeps, like it just reminds you that everything's really a cycle. Things go up, they go down, they come in, they go out. They're beautiful, they're ugly, they're fresh, they're old. It's just part of the cycle of life. And yeah, yes, yeah. Telly, I know you have some good ones for us.
Okay. Maybe I'll read a Rumi. I got to make sure I can get my hands on it. This is a Rumi I've found many years ago. It had been framed, and I didn't realize that the poem actually was part of a larger work. But I'm just going to read the part that I learned. What I liked about it, the paradoxical way it describes a master, and you could say the master's house, which is like just like describing Baba. He lived, you could say, very paradoxically, how he did things and then didn't do things and then undid the things and so forth. Anyway, but the metaphor here is about a house. And I guess take that for whatever you believe that Rumi is meaning that to mean. This house wherein is continually the sound of the viol, ask of the master, what house is this? What means this idol form, if this is the house of the Kaaba? And what means this light of God, if it is a Magian temple? In this house is a treasure, which the universe is too small to hold. This house and this master is all acting and pretense. Lay no hand on the house, for this house is a talisman. Speak not with the master, for he is drunken overnight. The dust and rubbish of this house is all musk and perfume. The roof and door of this house is all verse and melody. In fine, whoever has found the way into this house is Sultan of the world and Solomon of the time.
Wow.
As usual,
Beautiful.
profound and fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice paradox, isn't it?
Yeah. Wow.
Who is the translator?
I honestly, I don't know.
For some reason, I wasn't thinking Coleman Barks, so
Right. Let me see.
it's okay if you don't have it.
Yeah, I pulled it off the internet, and like I said, when I originally encountered it, the way I read it was framed on a wall, and I just was really struck by the imagery. And
Well, I like the way you read it.
oh, thank you. It's words that really have kind of bounced around inside of me.
Well, the
Let me see.
images are good too.
Pardon me?
The images are very wonderful.
Yeah, really. And the whole idea that the master is drunk overnight, how can you trust this person? And yet the rubbish of this house is all musk and perfume. It's like, oh my God.
I love that.
Oh, it's anyway. Let's see, I'll read a Brian Darnell. This is one he calls Abandoned Houses. I guess I'm into houses tonight. I didn't think about that till just now. Tonight, my heart's fire rages. Nothing to do but to throw myself in the river, flowing at my beloved's feet. Once I drifted free as a ghost. Now I'm rooted in holy soil, like the banyan trees on the path to my beloved's door. Under a dormant sky, the restless ocean heaves and sighs. How can the gulls darting here and there even fathom its depths? Windows of a long-shuttered room have been thrown open to fresh air and sunlight, music and laughter. Important people of the world, sleep on, moving about in your dreams, jabbing the air with your fingers. The mandali are giving out holy prasad. Those old bodies remind me of abandoned houses the winds blow through. Oh, child of God, your heart resides within his heart. Wherever your willfulness leads, remember, the beloved goes with you.
So good. I never get tired of hearing Brian Darnell's poetry.
He's amazing. He is like,
A force of
yeah,
nature.
yeah, he's amazing. There's such beautiful subtlety and understanding.
Mhm.
Pure abandonment. That's what
Yeah,
I get from his work. Just pure, unadulterated abandonment.
yeah, really. That's a good way to observe it, look at it.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Haley, if you would like to read something, we would invite you to do that. And if not, if we don't hear a peep from you, we'll carry on because we're not sure if you're where you are, but we just want to acknowledge you and say welcome and please let us know if you. Oh, there you are. You're muted, so unmute yourself if you want to say something.
I'm at the grocery store, and somehow I put in that name. It auto-corrected my name. It should be Gail, but it auto-corrected. So
Gail and Haley, not anything more at all.
Yeah, I was
Haley.
the unfortunate host this morning that found all those that thought I was messing up when all those codes came up and all that stuff. So anyway, I was So when I get home, I will read poems with you guys, but I'm listening for now. But I've liked everything so far. And the Brian Darnell just really, which book did that come from, Telly? Do you know?
I again pulled that off of the internet, where it just lists all his poems, or a lot of his poems. There could be 100 poems there.
Oh, right.
And
So what's the title?
Is it Gamelon or something?
Oh yeah, no, I know the title of the website. What's the title of the poem?
Oh, let me see. Let me see if I can.
And it may just be the first line.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah.
It's okay.
So it's called Gamela Yoga blogspot.com, GHAMELAYOGA blogspot.com.
Okay.
So like I said, it just and just lists all these poems by him.
But what was the title of the specific poem?
Oh, Abandoned Houses.
Okay.
Was the name of it. The Abandoned Houses.
I will look that up. That was sweet.
Sweet.
And I will.
Speaking of Brian Darnell, I had pulled one out by him.
Great.
It's called No Room for Why. My monastic cell, narrow as a gate, no room for why. Discouragement or zeal, joy or despair, comparisons, emotions, conviction or doubt, stripped of everything but one last dot of self from which to witness, offer silent praise and prayer. To be so tiny, my cell must open to the sky, have no walls, the whole round planet for its floor, and contain in its every unfolding moment the complete history of existence. Narrow is my monastic cell, only long, deep, and wide enough for God. O child of God, the scripture says, enter into a closet to pray. I just love that because I so often find that when I am in prayer or meditation, I am distracted. And when I am in something akin to a closet, I just cannot get away from it. I have to just be present with it. And that can be so transformative for me. I don't know about you all, but I just can't suddenly think I'm going to pick my phone up, or my gosh, the floor is dirty, I really need to take care of that, or just
whatever distraction
is attempting to take me away from my prayer time.
That's right.
Yeah. I've actually just gotten up in the middle of prayer and went and done something. I mean, that's how profoundly distracted I've been.
Yeah.
Well, prayer can be all different kinds of things. Some days it's light, some days it's heavy, some days certain words out.
That is so true.
Yeah.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I kind of love the way that Gail wanted to carry poetry with her into the grocery store. I was just at Curate, my favorite restaurant, and I was sitting at this it's like a bar where you watch people cook. And I go there because you can just meet the most fascinating people there. And I met a couple next to me from Colombia, and I recited a poem. They were kind of drinking a lot. And I recited a poem. We just had this great conversation that was just really quite heartfelt. And I recited a poem to her, and she, literally started weeping. And it was just such a reminder that poetry, to me, like prayer, it's kind of a welcome guest anywhere. You really take it anywhere you go. And
well, it's always wonderful when you meet someone who stops you on the street or at a restaurant and says, "Here's a poem." And
and that doesn't happen every day. Let's face it. So, yeah. I think one day I gave myself permission to do that because I realized that that's never going to probably happen to them the rest of their life. So I may as well just go ahead and have the experience with them, because of course I was nervous at first, like, maybe maybe they don't want to hear a poem, maybe it's they don't understand it, and I was like, whatever, this is going to be something they'll talk about for the next month. I met this woman in the curate. She was having artichokes and anchovies, and yeah. This is a Mary Oliver poem, which I love so much. There's no poem by her I don't love, actually, but this is sort of one that sort of stands out for me among the rest. And it's called The Journey. One day you finally knew what you had to do and began, but the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice. So the whole house began to tremble, and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each cried. But you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do, that the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, that their melancholy was terrible. It was already late enough in a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save.
Wow.
Is she like a natural born poet, or did she study?
I think she does have a master's. She did have a master's degree in poetry, actually, but I think she did it just so that she could teach and support herself. She started writing pretty early on.
So it's just something that was part of who she was.
I think so. I think if there's someone that you might call an itinerant poet, she would be one of those people.
Yeah, it doesn't sound studied and
Right.
belabored.
Right. And interestingly enough, she was often mocked because of that. She was often not taken seriously in academic circles, and she knew that. And it's interesting to me how many poets are not taken seriously because their work is too light, or it's too it's too heartfelt. Academics don't take that seriously, as we all know. So
it's almost like conversation.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, it's a really lovely way to put it. T.S. Eliot said, a writer is someone who is eavesdropping on their own thoughts.
That's a nice way. Oh, that's good.
Isn't that lovely? It's
really
so true.
It's like plugging into the witness.
Yeah.
Inside.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Speaking of poets that were not taken seriously by academics, this is a poet you don't hear a lot from, but he apparently was considered one of the top 10 poets in the United States in the 40s and 50s and 60s. He died in the 90s, American poet William Stafford. And it's called You Reading This, Be Ready. Starting here, what do you want to remember? How sunlight creeps along a shining floor. What scent of old wood hovers? What softened sound from outside fills the air? Will you ever bring a better gift for the world than the breathing respect that you carry wherever you go right now? Are you waiting for time to show you some better thoughts? When you turn around, starting here, lift this new glimpse that you found. Carry into evening all that you want from this day. This interval you spent reading or hearing this, keep it for life. What can anyone give you greater than now, starting here, right in this room when you turn around? The power of now. Diana and Telly, do either of you have other poems you'd like to read?
I don't have any.
Um, so this is, I know I have somewhere, I have a poetry file, and I can't even find my poetry file. But
well, as you know, I have plenty. Don't feel you have to be under any kind of pressure to do anything, because I'm happy to continue on, but I just didn't want to.
I read out of this book, Meister Eckhart, A Mystic Warrior for Our Times by Matthew Fox. He quotes Rumi and Hafez and others in this book. And he says, Rumi speaks often of the power of silence to take us to what we are looking for. In one poem, he says, we search for him here and there while looking right at him.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting at his side, we ask, oh, beloved, where is the beloved? Enough with such questions. Let silence take you to the core of life. All your talk is worthless when compared to one whisper of the beloved.
So true.
So, I'll read a Brabazon. This is lyrical poetry from Let Us the People Sing. It's something actually I had put to music at one point, but I'll just read it like poetry. It's called The Meeting. Now, I will tell you about one who is so handsome and so free. His face is a glorious sun. His eyes are a deep melody. Meher Baba is his name. He is the highest of the high. Stars and hearts are his loving game. For him is my song and my sigh. I met him when I was asleep and dreaming that I was awake. I met him as young dawn did creep from night's skirts, a new day to break. I met him by a silver stream that ran through a paddock of flowers. I met him in love's moment's dream that had escaped from the dull hours. I met him in a valley cool that was way above the blue skies. I met him by a shady pool that was within my own two eyes. I met him by the 5-rail gate that is the staff lines of heart's tune. I said, I'm sorry, I'm late. He said, it is I who came soon. I came soon because you are dear, dearer to me than you could know. I saw in his eye a bright tear, which in my heart started to glow. It glowed till it burst into flame, a flame that was so bright and pure, which formed itself into his name. It was more than I could endure. Now you know why I sing all day, and sometimes I laugh, sometimes weep. He stole my poor heart all away and left me his image to keep.
That's lovely. Thank you. Well, I actually have a new poem that I wrote, and then I wrote another version of it, and I would love to read it to you all because I'm in a debate about which version I like best. So perhaps if you could, I'll read one version, and if you can just say what impacted you or something was confusing. and or you can say something else, of course, but those are just some suggestions. And then I'm going to read you the another version, and then I just would love for you to tell me which version you liked better. And you don't have to say why if you don't know why, but I have to pull it up on my phone. One I wrote for my friend's wedding in Chattanooga. And my phone is not being as cooperative as I would like it to be. I'm not away all day. Don't know why. Okay, here it is. It's called The One Life. It's hard to squeeze a prayer into words, but a prayer this is, opening the door onto a threshold, the way veils tear and allow the uniting of worlds that were once formerly separate. Like noticing the darkness of night where loneliness and bright stars reside, those glowing sky embers speaking to you silently, reminding you that you are not in the conversation alone, and to gather all of the courageous and beautiful hearts around you, letting go of all that keeps you reluctant towards joy. You step from the darkness into the light, this time lucky enough to be with one you know you want to love, like finding home amidst the chaos, the way wild things are beautiful and don't care. And you discover then that you will walk across any landscape and any darkness, however dangerous, to take the one hand and the one life you know belongs in yours. Diane is doing something. I don't know what. She's saying, continue.
Yeah, that's an exquisite poem.
Thank you. I'll tell you a little fun thing about it after I read you the second version. Okay, so version 2. The One Life. It's hard to squeeze a prayer into words, but a prayer this is, opening the door onto a threshold, the way a veil tears and opens worlds that were once separate and unknown. Like noticing the darkness of night, where loneliness and bright stars reside. Those glowing sky embers speaking to you, silently reminding you that you are not in the conversation alone, and to gather all of the courageous and beautiful hearts around you, letting go of all that keeps you reluctant towards joy. You step from the darkness into the light, like finding home amidst the chaos, the way wild things are beautiful and don't care. And you realize that you will gladly walk through any gate, no matter how treacherous, to be with the one you know you want to love.
The second one is significantly shorter, isn't it?
It's a little bit shorter, but not significantly shorter. No, it's not significantly shorter. It's about 2 stanzas, two lines shorter.
Oh, really? It seemed much shorter.
Can you read the first one again?
Yes.
Probably actually read both of them again because they're good.
Yeah, they sure are.
Very, very beautiful.
And you read this at a wedding?
Yes.
Oh,
With the wedding I got COVID at. Okay.
Which version did you read?
The version 1.
Okay.
and you wrote it specifically for the wedding, or you had that in hand?
I wrote it for the wedding. Yeah.
If I might say, it was worth getting COVID.
It was actually a really amazing wedding. I kind of almost agree with you that it was almost worth it. just to be there at this really stunning event. And but there's a whole lot behind, there's a whole lot went to that. But okay, so I'm going to read the first version again, and then I'll read version 2. Then you all can vote. We'll have little buzzers you can hit, A or B.
Okay.
It's hard to squeeze a prayer into words, but a prayer this is, opening the door onto a threshold, the way veils tear and allow the uniting of worlds that were once formerly separate. Like noticing the darkness of night where loneliness and bright stars reside, those glowing sky embers speaking to you, silently reminding you that you are not in the conversation alone, and to gather all of the courageous and beautiful hearts around you, letting go of all that keeps you reluctant towards joy. You step from the darkness into the light, this time lucky enough to be with the one you know you want to love, like finding home amidst the chaos, the way wild things are beautiful and don't care. And you discover then that you will walk across any landscape in any darkness, however dangerous, to take the one hand and the one life you know belongs in yours. Version 2. It's hard to squeeze a prayer into words, but a prayer this is, opening the door onto a threshold, the way a veil tears and opens worlds that were once separate and unknown. Like noticing the darkness of night, where loneliness and bright stars reside, those glowing sky embers speaking to you, silently reminding you that you are not in the conversation alone, and to gather all of the courageous and beautiful hearts around you, letting go of all that keeps you reluctant towards joy. You step from the darkness into the light, like finding home amidst the chaos, the way wild things are beautiful and don't care. And you realize that you will gladly walk through any gate, no matter how treacherous, this time lucky enough to be with the one you know you want to love.
Man, you're making it hard on us. What's not in the second one?
Well, the same sentiment is there. It's just really different words
Mm-hmm.
describe the same essential thing, but the words are quite different.
And different images, because the image at the end of the first one, I got a sort of a hand in hand.
Yes.
And this one is not so definite in the ending.
That's a good point. Thank you. That's a really good point. Yeah.
For the first, but they're both exquisite.
Yeah, they're both excellent. I think for a wedding, the first one seems like the right one.
Yeah.
And the second one may be like a new love.
Yeah. So if you don't try not to think about it for a wedding, just think about it like which one do you like best, or which one spoke to you most deeply, or which one hit you the most, had the most impact on you. Sounds like for you, Diana, it wasn't the first one.
I think it was the first one.
Okay, good. Thank you. It's helpful. Anybody else care to vote?
First one.
First one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah. I think I'll also go for first one.
Okay, good. Thank you. Diane, you can put your finger up. Second one. Okay, interesting. The first one the first one has some lines from David White in it, because I met the bride at a David White poetry workshop and I wanted to honor that we met there. So so that was the difference. And that's why I had to rewrite it, because I wanted to record it on my CD, which I'm in the middle of recording. And I didn't, of course, want to use someone else's words because that would be plagiarizing. Yeah, he's kind of hard. He's hard to beat, David White. So I'll work on version 2 to see if I can lift it up a little bit more to come to version 1. Okay, here's another one I wrote. So if you want to make a comment about what impacted you or what was confusing or anything else, it's called Pulls Us Back. All seen forms hide the most silent, from which all life springs. It is an old trick to derail us, confusing the visible with what is hidden. Whatever takes you to the well, follow that thread. It is always dangling around us within arm's reach. Nature, a deep sigh, a friend's glance of recognition. Behold the ways we are invited, no one left behind. Be those open arms for someone. Be the thread that pulls them back from the abyss.
Did you write that during the COVID quarantine?
I wrote it 3 weeks ago. And it was about what I was witnessing with people during COVID.
Mm-hmm. It just
hard.
seems so comforting. So what COVID wasn't. I mean,
yeah.
COVID was so divisive and separate and not included, and that, which I'd like to hear it again, but that was what people needed. That's what they were missing. And people were feeling very singular.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My neighbor told me, she invited me over for Easter, and her daughters were there, and I really enjoyed meeting her daughters. They're in their 20s, and we just had a great conversation. And she later texted me. I really didn't know her very well. She just moved in 6 months ago, and she said, I've really been praying that somebody would come and be a mentor for my daughters, and I feel like you're that person. And then it turned out one of her daughters has had chronic depression her whole life and has been flat out suicidal, and has threatened to kill herself several times. And there was a part of me that wanted to reject her because I thought that was just so horrific that she was feeling those things. And is self-medicating with marijuana, the whole thing that happens with depression. And then I said to myself, wait a minute, you're being invited to actually be a lifeline to this person. So why don't you put all your judgments about her aside and be that lifeline? And so I just intentionally, continued to engage with her. And I thought to myself, how many times, people do that with us, where they don't judge us, they accept us, and they encourage us. And that can be just be completely a game changer for people. In the simplest thing to speak to someone, you just don't know it, because people are having such a hard time, and suicide and all those things are up so high, drug addiction and all that is just skyrocketed during COVID. It just hit me how many people, you don't know what people are dealing with, right? You see them at the grocery store, they look fine. They're buying something that you've bought. You think you have a little conversation, you think everything's okay, and then you find out it's not okay. So, that's kind of what inspired that poem for me.
It's all there, and especially in the last couple of lines.
Thank you. I wanted to write about my experience of COVID, but I didn't want it to be super depressing, and so I didn't realize I was writing the antidote to COVID. But I think now that we're chatting about it, I think that's, I think you're right, Haley. It sort of is the opposite. It's sort of the antidote.
Yeah, it's the opposite. My son has been suicidal during COVID. He's 31, I would be so grateful if somebody reached out to him. It's I don't know. It's just walloped people. Absolutely, just walloped people.
Yeah. It walloped me. There was a period right in the middle of COVID where I thought I just can't take it anymore. And I I reached out to people because I felt like I couldn't make it on my own anymore, which I'm sort of an introvert. So I'm like, I'm good. There's no parties. Yay. I can stay home. I can garden. I can read, that's my normal thought process. But in the middle of COVID, I was like, oh, no, I'm not okay anymore. It was just too much for so many people. And I was one of those people where it became too much. So, yeah.
Can you read it again?
Yes, I have to, if you don't touch your phone for a while, it just, you're so.
It goes to sleep.
It goes to sleep and then you have to like find it again. Pulls us back. All seen forms hide the most silent, from which all life springs. It is an old trick meant to derail us, confusing the visible with what is hidden. Whatever takes you to the well, follow that thread. It is always dangling around us within arm's reach. Nature, a deep sigh, a friend's glance of recognition. Behold the ways we are invited, no one left behind. Be those arms for someone. Be the thread that pulls them back from the abyss.
It's just really significant. It's what people needed. Yeah. Definitely.
Thanks for the feedback, y'all. It's always nice to have a group that you can share some new poetry with and get some honest feedback. I appreciate that. It's helpful.
It's such a wonderful reaching feeling in that.
Yeah. Be the thread.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well,
so are you recording your poems? Are you recording your poems?
I'm recording them to music. Yeah, I'm recording my work and 2 Remy poems and a Mary Oliver poem. We've finished recording it, and we just recorded a song to go with it, a hymn, an Appalachian hymn called "What Wondrous Love Is This," which I love, and I rewrote the lyrics so they're not so conservative, and had a little choir come sing it, which was great fun, so much fun. We did it last week, and it was hard to find an Appalachian hymn. I just happened to be something that I had heard through the years and just really enjoyed. I did a performance at a church several years ago here in Asheville, and I got this crazy idea to do a flash mob. So I embedded people in the audience that nobody knew that's what they were there for. And I said at the end of the reading, I said, was there someone in the back that had a question? And this woman who's just like got a voice, that just doesn't stop, stood up and she started singing, "What Wondrous Love Is This?" And then one by one, people, there were several Bible lovers involved in this. They stood up and sang their parts. It was a 4-part thing.
Oh, wow.
People went nuts over it. They absolutely went crazy over it. I just couldn't believe it was happening, that there was a flash mob right there in the audience. So when I have a CD release party, I'll probably do something like that again.
Sounds
really
joyful.
Really, it's a really joyful hymn. It's really about God's love. It's really what it's about, and so it was so much fun to record it. And so anyway, it should be out midsummer. And then I'm hoping to do a tour in New York and New England in the fall, and then eventually come into California, because I know 2 girls there who've invited me to come visit, and so we'll see how it all goes. See what the universe has planned for me. I say about all best laid plans. So But I'm feeling very called to go out and share poetry. I'm really feeling called to do that. Because I'm just so aware, like, you know, how much of a balm it is for all of us, poetry, especially right now. And we're kind of emerging, and there's so many difficulties that we're emerging into, you know. It's just an uncertain time for everybody. I see it everywhere I go. People are just stressed out still. So I don't know if y'all are seeing that, but
yeah. Unraveling.
there's a little unraveling going on. And it reminds me of that Hopi prophecy a long time ago that said, you know, there will come a time when people will have to make a decision who they serve. Do they serve the light or do they serve the darkness? And it will cause some people to lose their minds.